Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I have some recommendations for the I hate everyone in the world but you trope, so let's just get right into it. So I'm realizing now that maybe that's not a trope, but I'm gonna call it a trope anyway. So let's just get to the first book, which is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This is one I obviously recommend all the time. This one, I think the guy, Josh, in this book definitely gives, like, I hate everyone but you. He's just, like, super grumpy and doesn't really talk to anyone in the office. If you haven't heard, this is an enemies to lovers office romance between Lucy and Josh, who are working as assistants to, like, they basically both have the same jobs for different people, but they're, like, the exact opposites of each other. You know, like, his office is super clean and organized, and she's just, like, pure chaos all the time. Definitely, like, opposite vibes there, but he also, like I said, he just, like, doesn't like anybody, and he definitely has, like, the I hate everyone but you, except she also thinks that he hates her. So this one was definitely one that I really loved, and I think definitely fits into that vibe. Next is Blockshot by Kennedy Ryan. This is the second book in the Hoop series, but it is a companion series, so you could read this one on its own. This one follows a guy who once hooked up with this girl in college and they never saw each other again. They obviously end up running into each other now that they are older and they are seeing each other again. And I believe the guy in this one is actually, like, a sports agent. Like, it's part of a sports series, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't a sports player. I think he was, like, an agent or a manager or something like that. And he obviously has run into this girl again, and he definitely had these vibes. Like, he just hated everyone and wanted nothing to do with people, and she was, like, all, like, bubbly and, like, you know, people are great, like, I'm, you know, out here being all happy and whatever, and he just, like, was super grumpy and hated everyone. And so it's definitely probably got grumpy sunshine in this as well. This one was a little more emotional than I prefer my books to be, but that's, like, obviously personal preference. I know a lot of people really like the more emotional books, and so this one is definitely one of those. If you are interested in that, definitely look up the trigger warnings, because this one has something in it that I probably would have avoided if I had known it was in it, but I did not, so definitely look those up before picking this book up. Next is The Love Hypothesis by Hazelwood. This is obviously another super popular one. This one follows a girl who I believe is getting her master's or her PhD or something like that, and she is still in school, and there's this guy who is a professor who is just known as, like, the super, like, mean one, like, gives bad grades and doesn't like anyone, and everyone's, like, scared of him because he does all these things. And she ends up kissing him in the hallway one day because she tells her friend she's going out on a date, and she ends up working instead, so she kisses him in the hallway to make it look like she's leaving the date, and that's sort of how they start seeing each other. And I really, really love this one. I know it's, like, so hyped and everybody talks about it, but I did think it was really good, and I think it's worth the hype that it's getting. It was just, like, a fun, different kind of romance. Obviously, this one's sort of like Grumpy Sunshine as well. She's super happy and bubbly, and he's just, like, grumpy at the world and hates people, doesn't want to be around them. And I just think this one is really good for this trope as well. Next is The Sweetest Oblivion by Danielle. This one I feel like it was another one that was once really popular, and this is a mafia romance. In this one, the main character, Layne's sister, is supposed to marry this guy in an arranged marriage, but this girl, Elena, and the guy, Nico, both are, like, constantly bantering with each other, and you can just, like, tell right off the bat that, like, they should end up together instead of the sister, and something ends up happening where the sister ends up not marrying him, and he's kind of available and she's available, and things go from there. But I think this one definitely falls into this. He is, like, super, like, don't talk to me, everyone stay away from me kind of vibes, and just, like, doesn't want to deal with people in the world, and just sort of has his sights set on her, and he's like, I'm gonna get what I want. He's, like, very protective of her right off the bat, and, like, doesn't want anyone near her, and is just very, like, angry at the world, I guess. And I think this one definitely falls into this category as well. Like I said, it is a mafia romance, and it is part of a series. This is the first one. I don't know if the other ones fall into this category because I haven't read them yet, but they might as well. Next is Broken by Layne. I recommend this book all the time because I never see anyone talking about it, and I really enjoyed it. This one follows a girl who, I believe she drops out of college because she decides she's going to go volunteer somewhere, and her parents are like, okay, fine, but we're deciding where you volunteer. So she agrees because she's like, whatever, I'll just do this and it'll get me out of school. So they sign her up to basically be, like, the caregiver for a military vet, and she is thinking, okay, like, this guy's gonna be, like, 80, like, whatever, I'll go out, live in his, like, there's a part of the house that she can live in, so she flies out to this, you know, guy's place, and she shows up, and it turns out the guy is only like 24, and he is super, super grumpy, hates the world, doesn't leave his house, doesn't want to talk to anyone, he hates the people in the town because they're always gossiping about him, and he's just like this reclusive, like super, you know, like introverted guy who stays away from everyone, and he just like hates all the people in the town. So this one definitely had the I hate everyone in the world but you vibes, because he just like straight up wouldn't leave his house because he hated people so much. And I just really love this one. I think it was so, so good. It almost reminds me of Archer's voice, which is why I recommend it as much as like humanly possible, because I just think it's really good and I think a lot of people would love it if they give it a shot. Next is Savage Lover by Sophie Lark. This is part of the Brutal Birthright series, but it can be read on its own. This one is Nero's story, and he is sort of, I feel like, the one in the family that wants the least to do with what's going on. This is obviously mafia romance, and he's just kind of like, no, I'm gonna do my own thing, and he definitely has the vibes of like hating the world and just wanting to do his own thing and not worry about everybody else. And this one follows him and Camille. Camille went to the same high school as him and sort of knows of him, but like they were never like close friends or anything. But they have now sort of in a couple years after high school have run into each other and are kind of hanging out more and getting closer, and things are happening, obviously. This one I will say is a little less heavy on the romance than it is on the sort of mafia plotline, I guess. It's not even really a mafia plotline, it's more just Nero's trying to do something, and that is the entire plot of the book, is this thing he's trying to do. Instead of their romance, they are sort of slowly getting together, but I would say this is like a very, very slow burn, in that they're not even physically in the same place for most of these books, or most of this book, I guess I should say. And so if you aren't gonna like the other plotline, maybe skip this one, but if you are interested in sort of the whole thing that's gonna go down, then you might like this as well. It's got a lot more like action type things in it, but definitely the guy in this book fits this trope 100%. And next is There Are No Saints by Sophie Lark. This is part of a duet, and it follows a guy who is a literal serial killer, so he definitely has like the I hate everyone in the world but you vibes. He's also an artist, and so is the girl he ends up dating, and he sort of meets this girl because she's at one of the art shows that he's at, and he has his eye on her, but there's this other guy who's also a serial killer, and he notices that this guy has his eye on this girl, so he's like, oh, I'm gonna like get her first, basically. And that's sort of how they end up meeting. It's pretty crazy, the first part of this book, so I don't want to like talk about how it actually happens, because I think it's better if you just read it. This, like I said, is part of a duet. The other one is There Is No Devil, and I didn't like the second one as much as the first one, but the first one was really, really good. It definitely, like I said, has those vibes, because this guy hates everybody. He's a serial killer. He just like literally hates everybody except for this girl, and it's just really different. I've never read another book with serial killers, so I thought that was interesting, and definitely one that fits in this trope. Next is Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. This is obviously the first book in the Devil's Night series, although personally I just recommend the first book. I think it's the best out of all of them. This one follows a group of guys who always go out on this night called Devil's Night, which is the night before Halloween, and they basically like pull all these pranks and stuff, and this girl has always wanted to join them, and one year she finally does, and they end up getting arrested that night, all but one of them, who is the one that she sort of had a crush on, and so they all think it was her that turned them in. And so now we have jumped some time to the point where they're all out of prison, and they're kind of coming after her, but the one that's coming after her the most is the one that wasn't in prison, because he's the one that she likes, and he just like figures that she's the one that went after all his friends. So they're all kind of going after her, but the main guy, Michael, in this one definitely has like the I hate everyone in the world but you vibes, except like he's got his friends, but other than that he hates everyone. And this one was just, I think, really good. It's sort of like a bully romance. I don't know that I would really say it's like a super strong bully romance. Like, it's more, because it's like all four of them, it's not really the one guy, but I guess a lot of bully romances are like that anyway, so I guess maybe it is. But I personally, like I said, really like this first one. I didn't love the rest of the series as much, but I think this one is really good and definitely fits into the vibes of I Hate Everyone in the World But You. Next is Twisted Love by Anna Huang. This is the first book in the, I think it's called just the Twisted series. This one obviously is super popular on TikTok, and this one is a brother's best friend book where the brother is, I believe, studying abroad for a year. He disappears and he asks his best friend to look out for his sister. And to do that, the best friend decides he's gonna move in next door, but he's like this super like broody guy that wants nothing to do with anyone, and he's kind of just like, yeah, I'll watch out for her, like whatever. And she is basically like purposely trying to like provoke him, like she's kind of annoying him all the time, and her friends are like, oh, you should see if you can like get him to laugh or whatever, like I bet you that's not possible. And they're like, they all just like want to see what is up with this guy because he's so like I hate everyone kind of vibes. And so I think this one definitely fits into this trope. Next is Go Hex Yourself by Jessica Clare. This is one of probably my favorite books I've read this year. This one follows a girl who is broke and responds to a job ad in the newspaper, and she thinks it's for a card game that she really likes called Spellcasting. And it's sort of the like book equivalent of Magic the Gathering. Like these people collect all the cards and they like play against each other and whatever. And she thinks that that's what the job is related to, like that these people are somehow involved with this game, and she's obsessed with the game, so she's like, oh my gosh, this will be great. And she shows up to interview and she's like, well, this is weird, it's a house, it's not a business. And she's kind of there, and there's this girl that's like giving her a tour and explaining everything, and she's like, okay, this is getting weirder and weirder because there's like this old lady that lives there, and she's telling her that she's a witch. And she's like, okay, this old lady's like a little bit nuts, but like if they're gonna pay me enough, I can like hang out and, you know, do her laundry and her dishes and whatever, like I don't care. So she sort of agrees, and she's getting annoyed because they're all playing into this like magic idea that this lady's a witch, and she's getting really annoyed. But this witch's nephew is also there, and he can't stand this girl because she keeps making fun of magic and keeps saying it's all not real and, you know, all these things. And she's like, I wanted this job with the card game, but they're paying her like a ton of money, so she's like, okay, I'm gonna like tough it out and stay here. And this one was really good. The guy in this one is super like hates the entire world. The like warlock group that he's a part of, like they all can't stand him, they hate him, he hates them, like he just literally hates everybody except for like his aunt and this girl. And I just really, really loved this one. It gave me like definite Halloween Town vibes. The guy's name in this is even Caliban, which I feel like is kind of close to Calabar, which is the guy's name in Halloween Town. And so I just thought that was funny, and I really, really love this one. If you couldn't tell, it definitely fits in this trope. Like I said, everyone hates him, he hates everyone. It's just like a thing. They're all sort of scared of him. And I really, really loved this one. And so those are all of the books I have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I do new book videos every single week, and I'll see you next time.